So, be sleepless in your waking state is a quote that I recently heard from Lisa M. Harrison in one of her Q&As. They were talking about the concept of what it is to walk in truth and integrity and authenticity. And she, I feel, conceptualized it and distilled it down into one beautiful drop, which is, again, be sleepless in your waking state. So, uh, right now, I guess I'd like to explore that. I'd like to expound on that. I'd like to uh, rant, if you will, about that concept. So I'm going to start writing on the whiteboard and do some cuts here so it's a little smoother. And maybe I'll talk in between like each point after I write them or something. But first, let's break this down. So be sleepless in your waking state. Obviously, there are many paths up the mountain. There are also many paths down the mountain and around the mountain and henceforth in there too. So an easy way that I'd like to conceptualize this is into three main categories. One, two, three. Three categories. Obviously, there's more. You could obviously figure out some way to simplify it even more into less, but we'll go three. Three's a nice solid number for no particular reason at all. Anyway, looking at my notes here. First thing that we're going to start with is the sleeping state. I'm going to switch over to the nice little black marker so I can write a little more finely and illustrate these points. So, what is it to be sleeping? Sleeping, not sleepless. We'll start with sleeping. Well, a sleeping person looks a lot like you and I. They are physical, they have body, they have a life, they have an entire story and a universe and a arc of redemption and this, that, whatever they might be here to experience or what they want to do. But they are very much like you and I. Okay, so a person that is sleeping, right? A person is sleeping exists essentially more or less in a state of survival. They have a physical body. They are physically present here in this realm at this time with us. We can perceive them. They can perceive us. However, in terms of being sleepless in your waking state, this is where a sleeping person might differ. A sleeping person, like I said, exists somewhat in a state of survival in the physical body because a physical person believes that life starts and ends. And what I mean by that is a physical person's worldview or the way they approach their life is on the basis that their life begins at birth and their life very much ends at death. You know, there could be any form of conceptualization of an afterlife or whatever you want to consider. You could, again, you could argue way more than just three states, but I'm going to oversimplify this to make it very, very short and sweet for you. But anyway, if physical body, life starts birth, ends at death, they are aware of that body. In other words, they are aware of the physical self. That's kind of it. You're at this state of awareness or this state of like sleeping, the sleepiness, a little sleepy. Choices are made primarily, not always, but again, we're oversimplifying. Choices are made primarily for survival, right? I got bills to pay. I got a job. I got, children to feed. I got, I got to be somewhere at this time. I got to do this. I got to do that. The choices that they are more likely to make in their life are choices that are based primarily on like the survival and prolonging of life, essentially, for lack of a better explanation at this point in time. You could also say that this awareness of the body is also related to like an awareness of the environment. You react to changes around you. You react to other people reacting. Uh, yeah. All right. Now I'm gonna do some illustrating and move on to the next stage. All right. So the next stage, when you're graduating or moving on or leveling up or however you want to conceptualize this, when you move from sleeping, the next thing that you can move is to the stage of essentially a half awake, half asleep. You are yawning, but you're coming to. You're having moments of lucidity, and then you drift back off, and then you're coming back in, and you're drifting back off. These kinds of people, folks at this level of consciousness development, whatever you want to say, however you want to conceptualize it, I leave that to you. Um, they have some sort of concept of a soul or a greater existence, meaning they are aware of something greater than the physical body. They may not have that concept, boom, 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 nailed down. They may not have it like down pat, however you want to say it, but they have some sort of concept of this greater thing that's going on. You could think of that as like a religious worldview, a spiritual worldview, a worldview where you perceive like ultimate truths, or it could be somebody who dabbles in mysticism or hermetic teachings or this, that, whatever. I don't know. It could be anything. Mystery schools, etc., etc. But they do have this concept of a greater thing. So the way I illustrated that, it's kind of cute, I think, is a little dude imagining a video game controller, imagining that he's playing a game. So he has some sort of concept of a bigger picture than the sleeping person who is just aware of their body, their immediate vicinity, the news that's pushed in their face, the things that they're told, etc. Maybe we won't go down there. Half awake, half asleep. The biggest thing, my favorite thing to talk about with half awake, half asleep, is that these folks down here, the sleeping folks, are aware of the body, they're aware of the environment. We'll add that in for clarification. So then, while sleeping folks are aware of the body slash the environment, you move up to somebody who is half awake, half asleep. These folks, as a fun way of conceptualizing it, are aware. They are aware. They are aware that they are aware. Let's think about that for a second. Let's really chew on that. No, we're going to munch on that for a moment. Somebody who is aware that they are aware. This is somebody who has the ability to consciously reflect on what's going on in some situations, decide whether they like it or not, whether it's proceeding. Are we riding our bikes downhill? Do we need to be pedaling right now? Are there any potholes coming up? It's somebody who is present, they're patient, they are aware that they are aware, they are not acting on impulses, they're not reacting, they are responding, at least some of the time. That's the key here. They are half awake, half asleep. In this concept, aware that they are aware, I'll offer another level here. This is somebody who exists on the level where when their thought speaks to them, something listens. So again, we'll compare that back. The sleeping person thinks, right? They see their environment, they are aware of the body, they are aware of the fact that they need to eat, they are aware of the fact that they need to drink liquids during the day, they are aware of the fact that they need to do X, Y, and Z and pay their bills and stuff like that. So they are aware and their choices are made for survival. But over here, you are aware that you are aware. There is a thought that speaks, and there's something, in here that listens, something else, something greater or higher. Again, we go back to that concept of the soul or a greater existence. There's some sort of awareness. It's still, murky, shady, foggy, whatever you want to call it, but that awareness is there. They are aware that they are aware, their thought speaks, and something listens, right? So because something is listening, I would argue at this point that choices are made entirely on the context. So here is this person asking me for my last $5. If I live in a state of survival and there's no way I can possibly fathom giving somebody my $5 or imagining that somebody needs it worse than I do, I'm not giving that person my $5, like no matter what. But if this is my best friend who's late on his bills and I can skip a meal to help him pay his bill off or something or not get evicted or whatever, a half awake, a half asleep person can make a choice. They can reflect, they can consciously think about the consequences of their actions before they take those actions, which is such a novel idea, right? But anyway, their choices are made entirely on the context of the situation. What is involved? Where is it happening? What's happening? How is it happening? When is it going to happen? Et cetera, et cetera. It could be different depending on the time of day. It could be different depending on, whether they've just eaten or whether they got in a fight with their significant other or whatever else. But these choices are made entirely on the context of the situations. I'll add on one more quick thing, verbal metaphor, if you will. A sleeping person here is someone who is walking around the path. If we're going to visualize this, if there is a giant mountain and obviously there's no goal, there's no end point at least, or something that you need to achieve or anybody needs to achieve. The point of this place is to be, my friend. But these people, as opposed to walking whatever individualized path that they have set around for themselves, they're kind of just like walking around the path. So they're kind of circling the mountain here, and maybe they make some progress, maybe they don't, maybe they do something really well and learn something, but then maybe they backtrack a little bit, or maybe they have a late start, or maybe they have a time start in some situations, and maybe it's just not quite time for them yet. But regardless, they are walking around the path. And then somebody who is half awake, half asleep, at whatever rate they're working on, at whatever rate they are moving forward, if they're taking 3 steps forward and 4 steps back, and then 5 steps forward and 4 steps back, or however that may seem, they are walking the path. That can look like any number of ways. As somebody once said, I'm sure many people have said this too, there are many paths up the mountain. That's like beautiful, right? Anyway, let's move on to our last stage here. All right, and lastly, we have awake. Someone who exists or tries to exist at this level of consciousness has remembrance in whatever shape or form that may take for them. As again, as Lisa M. Harrison also said, it's an individual inside job for all of us. And so remembrance for each individual obviously is going to look completely and entirely different. But this person has not absolute, but like knowledge of the soul. This person, half awake, half asleep, has some concept of a soul or a greater existence. But this person has remembrance. They have knowledge. They are somebody who has had an OBE, a transformative experience, something crazy happened in their life, or some sort of trigger or sequence of events or whatever it is that has led them to knowledge of the soul. They know that they exist beyond this realm. They know that they exist beyond this experience. They know that this experience does not contain them. Essentially, to tie it in with my pretty picture here, this person no longer has a concept that they might be playing a game. They know and remember that they are playing a game, and they are able to separate themselves from that game. They are aware that they exist beyond this experience. And because of this, choices are made in love, because at the end of the day, love is truth. It's the only true thing that we really have here, right? And then also to tie this in, this person over here who's awake, guess what? I got a surprise for you. This might sound totally crazy, but they are still walking the path, brother, sister, whoever you are, beloved soul out there listening, whether you are still sleeping, whether you are half awake, half asleep, or whether you are some bodhisattva, whatever you want to call yourself or think of yourself or whatever, you're still walking that path. You still woke up here this morning, you still got onto YouTube or got into the Telegram group or wherever this video ends up getting posted, you clicked on it and you still chose to be here. You woke up and you're in your body this morning. You made that choice, whether you realize it or not. And because of that, you are still walking the path. Now, some people walk the path, for many reasons. We won't go down that. We'll try to keep this concise. So anyway, awake person, still walking the path. Choices made from love. A great way that I like to conceptualize this in another way, if this hasn't already been enough conceptualizations of how to be sleepless in your waking state, and we could expand on all of these, right? You could talk more about any one of these or write any number of subpoints or expand upon it, but the idea of this is to keep it short. I'm going to draw one more quick picture for each of those, and then we'll wrap up here. All right, so last visualization, I'd like to talk about sleeping. Fun way of thinking about this, just making it, again, bringing it down to the level that you could explain to your child if you wanted to. A sleeping person, unconscious person, a person that exists in a state of survival is like a person in the ocean. They are entirely at the whimsy of their environment. When the waves get larger and scarier and the water gets choppier, they get tossed around in them waves. My boy, my girl, whoever's listening, they get tossed around in them waves. And the waves you can imagine as we won't go too deep into this, but as the sine waves of life as we exist in time here at this time and moment and space. But anyway, you exist fully in the waves. You are using your state of survival, your awareness of your physical body to keep you up, to balance yourself up, if you will. Then you move on to the half awake, half asleep state. This person has access to a surfboard. They have access to something that can help keep them afloat. They have this concept of the soul or greater experience. They are walking that path. They are somebody who is searching, in another way of wording it. They're somebody who is out here looking around, digging down rabbit holes, reading books, talking to people, listening to interviews, listening to podcasts, devouring information, that kind of stuff. At whatever rate, could be fast, could be slow. All depends on your individual inside job and your circumstances. So anyway, this person kind of has the surfboard. They're kind of hanging out. They're not in distress. There's a cool lightning bolt the whole way down the surfboard. They're kind of chilling. They're getting more and more comfortable as time passes if they figure out how to use that surfboard, right? Wink, 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 wink. How to use the surfboard and stay up above the waves. At this point, when the water gets choppy and the waves get bad, because they have the support of that surfboard, they can still keep their head above water. And then you cut down here to somebody who is quote unquote awake. They are still walking the path, but this remembrance and this knowledge of the soul gives them mastery, or something close to mastery, over the surfboard, where they can have whatever they want on it. If you want a little snake and a dagger, you can have that. If you want a cool lightning bolt, if you want sacred geometry or whatever, the surfboard is your surfboard. So here he is doing a handstand, being all cool, woo, having a good time, staying above the waves. This person does not care what the ocean does, because they know they aren't even in the ocean. They are aware that they exist beyond the ocean, and that they are here on the ocean to do exactly this, to experience, to feel the waves and allow them to pass. There is no attachment. There is no holding on. There is no fighting or survival. There is also no doubt. There's no back and forth. This person is aware, is awake, and remembers and has knowledge of the soul. In any terms, I hope that was a helpful conceptualization for some. I think that this is a really simple way of broaching the subject and making it very grounded and approachable, and hopefully this reaches somebody out there. But anyway, peace and love, blessings to you from another soul in the realm at this time.